And even though the crowds keep pouring into Branson, don't worry about a place to stay. The town has plenty of lodging. Some of the local favorites include the Southern Oaks and the Magnolia Inn.
So in 1995, we had 2 motels where people began to live in them. They were called weekly and extended stay motels. By 2008, we had over 40 of these motels. We realized that there is a huge housing issue, not only houses located next to jobs because of affordability and lack of public transportation, but that the model of living in extended stay motels was not going to be sustainable. I remember hearing Dr. Ben Carson talk about the solutions in communities that had zoning restrictions, that tiny houses could be a solution for that. And so we just started dreaming.
Okay, here's a funny story. Brian, my husband, and myself were at a restaurant in Branson, and Brian had been talking about this tiny home community for a couple years.
I'd been talking about it for a while, and she said, well, do you see that in your head?
I looked at him and I was like, can you actually see this in your mind? Like, do you know what this tiny home community looks like?
I said, I absolutely do. And so she said, well, write it down on this napkin.
So pulls out a napkin on the table and pulls out a pencil, and he maps out what this tiny home community could look like. And it was amazing because he had like streets and tiny businesses, and all the houses were nice and neatly drawn on the napkin. And at that point I realized, oh my gosh, he really has a vision for our community. God has gifted him as a visionary to help make really great changes for our area.
And I just saw that tiny houses could be so impactful. Plus we have this kind of shift right now too in our world economy. Maybe bigger's not better. Affordability is an issue, and so tiny could be the solution. Maybe getting rid of stuff. I wish we'd kept that napkin because I had it sketched out, and it's very similar to what we're developing now.
About 2.5 years ago, I decided that I didn't want any more abuse.
I've had difficulties in the past with wanting to live. The cancer diagnosis in my life has been challenging at times.
But that was about the only way I could accept even being homeless was the alcohol, you know. It kind of numbs all that.
Yeah, I would say early 2023, things just sort of fell off a cliff for me. And I left, and through a very rapid set of circumstances, plus the circumstances I was involved in, found myself homeless pretty quick. There I was, and homelessness became an instant thing, and I had a car, and so I was able to use that as a mobile living situation for a time.
Never dreamed that would happen, but it happened to me, and I just had to accept it. But, you know, things happen, and thank God for family, you know, especially a daughter of mine who, you know, I called her up and said, you know, I'm homeless, daughter, and she said, where you at? And I told her, and she said, I'll be there tomorrow. And so she's the one that was instrumental in putting me into rehab.
Food became impossible. You don't have a refrigerator, you don't have a freezer. You realize that the fear of this being your home wasn't as bad as the fear of, I don't know what's going on around me. Where can I be that I'll be safe, where I won't feel like I couldn't scream for help should I need to. But I thank the Lord for that car, because that car got me to Elevate Branson.
Well, when I walked through the doors here at Elevate, what happened is I met representative here. She asked me if she could help me, and I started, asking about the resources here. She led me to the tiny house application, kind of got a little, background history on me.
So I came inside, and Crystal France is the first person that greeted me at the desk, and there were multitudes of people in the lobby that day, and I was crying. And eventually she came walking towards me, and I just kind of looked up at her and said, I'm homeless. Just blurted it out, I'm homeless, I need help.
Elevate Branson has given me a place for belonging. I am able to see my neighbors here and help them. Being chosen as a recipient for a tiny home has offered me a great deal of calmness in my housing search.
When I finally move in to the tiny home, I think I'll just sit there for a while and, and thank him for this, first of all. Fantastic. Of course, there's a lot of other phrases that could go in there, but to me, it's just fantastic, a new lease on life, a second chance.
Empowerment is big for me because I have felt so little power in my life. When I open the door to my tiny home, Jesus and I are going to walk hand in hand through the door. I think the first thing I'm probably going to say is that myself and this home will serve the Lord.